I also want to introduce our committee. And if you all could stand and maybe kind of come toward the front so people will know who you are. Our campaign manager, Justin Barrett. Our treasurer, Patty Ryan Nicholson. I don't know if she's here yet. Our liaison to the Latino community, Millie Zayas. Our senior advisor, Ellie LeBlanc. Our database manager, Don Nicholson. Our youth advisor, Guy Sergi, down at the back. And other key members of our team, Patty Strom, Janet and Bob Williams, and Barbara Compton. I also want to acknowledge the elected officials in the room, and it would help me immensely if you could stand. But first, a big round of applause for the mayor of our great city, Jeanette McCarthy. I know I saw her come in, the Dean of the Council, Kathleen McMinimum. Councilor of Ward 4 and Chairman of the Finance Committee, Tom Curtin. Councilor of Ward 3, George Darcy. Councilor of Ward 9, Robert Logan. Councilor of Ward 1, Dan Romad. We have school committee member here, Margie Donnelly. Okay, have I missed any elected officials? There we go. We also have two candidates for city council with us. Candidate for a councilor at large, Joe Vizard. And running for council in Ward 5, Lillian Santangelo. I also want to thank Jackie Thomas and her crew for preparing the wonderful meal that we're about to share, and Dickie Urati and everyone here at the American Legion for taking care of our setup. And again, I thank you for the privilege of serving as your counselor at large. And I promise you that I will never take your support for granted, and that I will work hard each and every day to earn and keep your trust. God bless you, God bless Waltham, and God bless America.
You know, before we get to your questions, Guy, again, I want to thank you for being with me today. Each candidate got to choose who they wanted to have interview them. I chose you because you represent our city's future, and because I've been so impressed with your civic engagement and interest in government. When I met you, you were the president of your 8th grade class, and you have been involved in student government since, and now the president of your class at St. Anselm College. I know you care about Waltham, and you know how important community involvement is, so thank you for doing this.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. So I think it'd be good to start with the questions.
There you go.
Now.
Let's go.
So, Ms. LeBlanc, 2 years ago you ran on the platform for no property tax increases and no cuts to public safety. Are you still committed to these?
Absolutely. Waltham has a very reasonable property tax rate compared to other cities and towns. But the reality is that many in our community are struggling financially, and many are on a fixed income. They can't afford higher property taxes. I want Waltham to remain affordable, not just in the short term, but in the long term. I want you to be able to afford to buy a home here and raise a family here. Now, as far as no cuts to public safety positions, this too remains a priority for me. I don't want to see any city services diminished. But should tough choices be warranted, I would always fight to protect our fire, police, and emergency management positions, and I would look to make cuts elsewhere.
That's very important.
It is.
Now, you voted against the budget in 2010. Why?
So I don't believe that part-time city councilors should be getting full-time health insurance benefits at the taxpayer's expense. I don't take the health benefit. I attempted to cut these benefits during the budget session held by the Finance Committee, and then again in the Committee of the Whole. I was told that I couldn't because they weren't a separate line item and they couldn't be identified. So they remained in the budget. My no vote on that budget in 2010 was against the City Council, not the mayor.
Okay. The second part of your platform, which you talk about at the kickoff, is accessible government. Why is accessible government so important?
You know, as a councilor at large, I represent the entire city. The only way to do that is by making myself accessible. I also want our city departments and our services to be more accessible, more user-friendly, more customer-focused. You know, many of our departments are already very good in this regard, but there are others that could be improved if there were more support for change.
Okay. Now, I know you know a lot about Waltham, you know a lot about its issues. What are some of the big issues that are facing the city?
Okay. So our big issues, our ongoing issues, are those that face any city. Development and the associated infrastructure and traffic concerns connected with development. In most cases, it's about finding the balance. We need responsible development. It brings dollars into the city, which allows us to keep residential property taxes low, and it creates jobs. But we also need to preserve our existing open spaces and our neighborhoods. You know, where there's been a prior existing business and the property is now vacant, I believe we need to work more cooperatively with developers to address those issues of traffic and infrastructure so that these projects can move forward more quickly. We also have existing infrastructure needs throughout the city, which impact the quality of life for some residents on a daily basis, and for many others whenever there is a major rain. Now, we've made headway in this area recently, and I have full confidence in our city engineer, but the reality is that there's much more work to be done. We also need a new fire station on the south side of the city, and all of these things cost money. So for me, someone who is committed to keeping the residential property tax rate low, I am open to new models, new ways of doing business that would result in savings, and so that we could redirect those savings to some of these types of priority projects which have a direct impact on the quality of life for our residents.
Okay, okay. You have tremendous chief executive level experience from your many years at the National Archives, which is part of the federal government. What challenges have you faced and how have you dealt with them?
So it's easy to manage and serve your constituents when you have all of the resources that you need. The challenge comes when you have increasing demands and limited resources. Over the years, I've successfully dealt with resource issues. I've balanced budgets, I've dealt with across-the-board cuts, and still managed to revamp the delivery of services to be more efficient and to focus on the customer. I have restructured work units and overseen reorganizations, and I've had the task of shutting down operations, one that impacted more than 80 employees. Now, as difficult as these situations were, I've managed them successfully through open communication with our staff, with our constituent, and with our union.
You have tremendous leadership experience. It's without said. Tell folks a little bit more about your the Federal Executive Board that you, in your role in it.
Okay, so I'm currently serving as the Vice Chair of the Greater Boston Federal Executive Board. And on October 1st, I'll be sworn in as its chair. My role is to bring together the federal government in this part of the country and the federal employees to work on common issues for the good of all. Federal executive boards have been in existence for 50 years, and I have provided leadership at some level to the local board for 25 years.
Okay.
And for 15 of those years, I have actually served as its chair or vice chair. We have some footage to show that I think will help explain to folks what federal executive boards are. And we have one clip that provides an example of my leadership to the local board at a critical time in our nation's history.
That sounds great. Let's watch.
5 decades ago, President John F. Kennedy called on all Americans to rise to the challenges of the day. He knew success depended on the unity of effort throughout the federal government and the nation. His memorandum of November 1961 was simple and direct. Quote, "I want coordination of government activities outside of Washington significantly strengthened across department and agency lines." End quote. The federal executive boards were born.
It was when our government created the Department of Homeland Security, and that was the most significant, reorganization since the creation of the Department of Defense, probably. When that happened, it was actually, I was the chair of the FEB at that time, it was actually the Federal Executive Board that was the first group to bring together all of those different parts here in the Greater Boston area.